We are now on Module 7, Managing Virtual Machines. In this module, we will look at creating templates and clones, modifying virtual machines, migrating virtual machines, creating virtual machine snapshots, creating VApps and removing virtual machines, and at content libraries. Let's start out with creating templates and clones. Virtual machine files. A virtual machine is made up of a group of files. If we go to the data store and right-click and select Browse, we can see that there is a folder for each virtual machine. And in that folder are the key virtual machine files. There is the .vmx file, which is the virtual machine configuration file. And there is the .vmdk file, which is the virtual machine virtual hard disk file. So when we create a template or a clone, we are simply copying or moving virtual machine files. Let's go to templates. What is a template? A template is a master image of a virtual machine that can be used to create new virtual machines. This image typically includes an operating system, applications, and configuration settings. So here's the situation. You have created a virtual machine and installed the server operating system, and you've configured it just the way you want it. And you want to create multiple virtual machines which are identical to the first virtual machine, except they have to have different computer names and different security identifiers. So a template allows us to do that. A template allows us to make a copy of an existing virtual machine, but it removes variables which must be different, such as computer name and security identifier. So let's create a template using the vSphere desktop client, and we will log on to vCenter server. I click on the shortcut to take me to the vSphere desktop client, and I log into the vCenter server as administrator. Remember, when you log on directly to the ESXi host, you log in as root. But when you log into the vCenter server, you log in as administrator. Type the password, click on log on, and now I am connected to the vCenter server. Here is an accounting server, and I've set it up just the right way. I've got the operating system installed and the accounting software, and now I want to be able to deploy servers based upon this server. So I right-click on this server and I select template followed by clone to template. Then I specify the name of the template, which in this case will just be called accounting server-template followed by next. Specify the ESXi host onto which it will be installed, and you can see that the compatibility validation did succeed. Click on next. I select the data store where I want it to be stored, followed by next. Then I click on finish, and that creates the template. To view the template, I go to the templates view. To get to the templates view, I select home, and under home I select inventory, and under inventory I select virtual machines and templates. And now you can see there is the accounting server template. If I go to the data store and I browse the data store, I can see here are the files for the original accounting server, and here are the files for the accounting server template. And notice that the template file has a .vmtx extension. If it has a .vmtx extension, then that tells us that it is a template file. Now let's create a new virtual machine based upon the template, and this is called deploying a virtual machine from the template. So when we do this, we are going to have to supply the following variables: computer name, administrator password, domain membership, and generate a new SID, a security identifier. A security identifier is a unique number which must be different for each operating system. No two should have the same. So to deploy from this template, I will select my accounting server template, right-click, and select Deploy Virtual Machine from this template. I will give the new virtual machine a name. I will call it Accounting Server 2, followed by Next. I will specify that it will be installed on this ESXi host and the compatibility validation has succeeded, followed by Next. I specify the data store where I want it to be stored, and then I select the radio button that says Customize using the customization wizard. Click on Next. Here is where I specify the owner's name and the organization, CCBC, followed by Next. Here I can type in a NetBIOS name, but it's more convenient just to select the radio button that says use the virtual machine name, because I've already established that the name of the virtual machine name is going to be called Accounting Server, followed by Next. Then I type in the product key, and if the virtual machine does not require licensing, then leave these fields blank. That's what I will do. Click on Next. Then I type in an administrator password, followed by Next. Specify the time zone, followed by Next. I can specify any commands that I would like to be run the first time the user logs in, but I will not specify any, followed by Next. Then I can specify my TCP/IP settings. I can select typical settings, in which case it will be a DHCP client, or if I select custom settings, I can type in a static IP address, but I will leave it as a DHCP client, followed by Next. I could leave it as a member of a work group, but I'm going to add it to the CCBC domain, and then I specify the domain administrator's name and password, followed by Next. Now, under Generate a New Security Identifier, absolutely, this is the most important thing that we can do, because every operating system has a security identifier, and no two operating systems should have the same security identifier. So we definitely want to generate a new security identifier. Click on Next, and then we can review the information that we are assigning to the virtual machine, followed by Finish. Click on Finish, and now you can see that we have created a new virtual machine called Accounting Server, and it is identical to the first accounting server, except it has a different computer name, a different IP address, and a different security identifier. Updating the template. If you need to update a template, first you convert the template back to a virtual machine, then you install the updates on the virtual machine, and then you convert back to a template. Now let's talk about cloning. When you clone a virtual machine, you are making an exact copy of that virtual machine, including the computer name and IP address. Here's the example of when you would use cloning. The example is you plan to install new software on a virtual machine, and the new software may ruin the virtual machine. So you want to have a copy of that virtual machine just in case the new software trashes the virtual machine. And the solution is to create a clone. A clone is an exact copy of a virtual machine. Let's make a clone of this server right here, server 2012. I will right-click on the server, select Clone, and then type in the name, and I will simply call that 2012 server-clone, followed by Next. Specify the ESXi host onto which it will be installed, and the validation succeeded, followed by Next. Select the data store where I want it to be stored, followed by Next. And then I will select Do Not Customize, because a clone retains the same computer name and IP address. I click on Finish, and now here I can see there is 2012 server clone. So if somehow I totally screw up the virtual machine called 2012 server, I can then bring the one called 2012 server -clone. I can bring that online because it's an exact copy of the first. So to bring a clone online, if I go to the virtual machine console for that clone, you can see it's not running. But if I click on the green arrow to the right, the power on button, then that brings the clone online, and now the server 2012-clone is online. But whatever you do, don't bring them online at the same time. Don't bring the clone online at the same time the virtual machine that it has been cloned from is online, because they have the same name and same IP address and same security identifier. Templates and clones. With a template, you are making a copy of a virtual machine, but you are changing certain key variables such as the computer name and the IP address and the security identifier. A template allows you to deploy new virtual machines based upon an existing virtual machine, whereas a clone makes an exact copy of a virtual machine. And this concludes this section.